Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back. And look at that, it's this time of year. Isn't it cute?
It is. Do you guys love these things? I remember as a kid these things. I loved them. I thought they were just so fun, cool, festive.
There were so many different kinds. I always like the ones with the unicorn in them, though.
Yeah. Unicorns. Ah.
Yeah.
Well, you think about it, these snow globes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'd shake them up and they have their own whole environment.
Yeah.
It's like these, I could, as a kid, I'd almost imagine these things being alive in their own little world inside that glass.
Well, they're just fun. You shake them up and sometimes they have the white flakes and sometimes they have the glitter flakes. And then you just sort of watch everything be suspended for a little while and then it floats down. And it's kind of therapeutic.
Suspended for a little while and then floats down. I mean, see, I didn't coach her on this stuff, but she's helping me with what we're going to be talking about. So when we see the Earth, right, and we see this beautiful sphere of blue and white and different shades as well, and we get this backdrop of space, and space seems black, and we're told it's pretty empty, it's a void, it's a vacuum. There's nothing really out there besides some rocks floating around, some icy balls that we know as comets, and then other planets and stars. But, is that really the case? Is that really, really the case? We go to Genesis, and again, is the Bible infallible? Absolutely not, because it's been revised a million times. And does it yet have some truths in it? Yeah, undoubtedly it does. There are some truths, there are some things in there that can help us understand how the universe works and life in general, and give us a moral compass sometimes. And sometimes that moral compass that's in here is pointed in a wrong direction.
Yeah.
Completely. And, again, we've brought that up time and time again. I know many people, may be coming to this for the first time. And, what's different about us is, we don't follow any one dogma, because dogma divides, but yet we look at everything. And if it's useful and helps to understand a situation, okay. If it doesn't help to understand and cause more division, well, then we need to maybe throw it out in the bigger scheme of things, or recognize, again, as we've said so many times in other videos, if you're, and I have a friend, one of my friends I had for decades and decades, you couldn't talk to him because he would keep saying the Bible's infallible, and I'd say, well, look at Kings and Chronicles. Who told David to number the people? Because one says Satan, the other says, God, and then he will, find his logic. Well, it was God working through Satan. I mean, they'll always come up with something. Or if they get to the point where they can't explain it, it's a divine mystery. It's above us.
And don't ask, yeah.
But then why did the scribes cross out words, in the Gospel of John, the oldest copy we have, 3,000 edits? Were they confused? Perhaps, yes. 3,000 edits, it's not infallible. I mean, again, you got to look deeper. All this just blinds us. When we get into that mindset that there's only one way to understand something, and there's only one path in life to take, and everybody's got to be on that path. Oh, that goes against the purpose of life itself. And, when you go deeper, you won't know. Everything you need to know is within you. You don't have to look outside for anything. Of course, looking outside can lead to illuminations, and also understanding and recognizing things that are contradictory and don't make sense that the majority of the world might totally believe in. So we see in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. Well, there always was light. And one thing to recognize is, when we're saying these words like God, again, there are many different translations. And, one of the words that pops up is Elohim. Now, we've talked about beings that portray themselves to be Elohim, that betray themselves to be true creator gods, in the plural. But they are not. There are lower entities that don't view humanity in a benevolent light, that portray themselves as our creators, but they're not. And again, how about creator gods in and of itself? As I've said before in a couple of videos, one of the big things that's been a very, very big eye-opener is the realization that the creator of the universe we find ourselves in is not necessarily the same creator as another universe. There's multiple creator gods, so to speak, beings. We need to kind of throw the G word out in a way, because it's just been so utilized for so many different types of beings. You know, you have the gods of, say, Norse mythology. And if we're talking about the Aesir and the Vanir, we're mostly talking about fourth density beings. This is part of what we've discovered. Why do we have certain beings at certain time frames? Well, it depends on where we are in the ascension and descension process, because we're going through 3D up to 4D up to 5D, and then we come back down, in many cases, down through the same muck and mire, and we end up being exposed to beings like the Anunnaki and the Gigi. Again, too, with the Anunnaki, you know, there are some people that do wake up, and no matter what being you are, there are some that can understand, you know what, the system that I'm in is not a benevolent system, and I don't really like taking part of it. Even the Anunnaki, there are Anunnaki and Gigi, well, perhaps not necessarily Gigi on this planet, but you know, elsewhere, that wake up to this fact and are not all in unison. Just like humanity, there's those of us that are standing up now and saying, no, hell no, I get it. I see what you are doing. And no, we do not comply. No, we do not give our free will away. And no, we're not going to subjugate others. It's just not right. But when we're talking about the beings that actually manifest, create life, create an entire universe, there are actually many of them. It's not one. And yet they're not source. That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of people, they will not be able to understand that.
No, they're not going to be able to really embrace that acceptance because of their conditioning since childhood. We've been taught out of this one particular book, and this one particular book keeps us in a certain box, and it keeps us in under somebody else's control. You know, it's not until you go ahead and break out of that box and you start to learn for yourself, things are not as they appear, and everything is different, and it's okay that it's different. I think that's the big thing, that it's okay. Don't
Absolutely. You know, and that's one of the things to get across. Everything is in one way, shape, or form okay, because it's all part of a learning curve. And, you know, at the same time, of course, we do not want to harm others. If we're on that ascending path, we understand that harming others is ultimately going to be harming ourselves. So taking part in a system that subjugates others ultimately hurts us as well. It hurts everybody involved. So when we see this, now there again are there's many different types of creator beings out there. And when we get to source is source. And there is, you know, one source from which everything else, you know, branches off from. And yeah, these very, very high level beings can create entire universes. Now they do it and with help as well. They actually let's see. I wanted to show you guys. And I'm trying to remember where it was. Well, we'll get to it. But think of it again. Think of the rays of the sun, right? And this is the analogy that the guides gave us. When you get to source, every single ray off of source can literally be a being that we would view as the creator of our universe.
Right.
Quiet, guys. So they're actually creator beings on the par of being creators of entire universes. And yet they're not source. They're just a single branch, a single light ray from source. And again, this is something that could be very hard to comprehend. Well, how about, and there's so much conflict between people that take things literally and look into a figurative light.
Yeah, I think the problem in lies in people allowing themselves, giving themselves permission to believe something different. Because the controllers have been very, very careful to make sure people stay inside of this box. And they've been very boisterous about the consequences and what happens if you step outside of this box. So it's about giving yourself permission, saying, okay, I'm going to open up to another possibility.
So many people have talked about the question of the firmament, right? And is the earth flat? Well, what about the waters above the dome? What's the dome? As we see this little, illustration, the waters above and the waters below. And you see the firmaments touching the lower waters, not raised high above the lower waters. Some have said there was something in place before that's not here now. And yes, the world has changed, dramatically from era to era. But the thing to understand is we're given this picture of the vastness of space being an empty vacuum, inhospitable, incapable of supporting any single form of life. And yet that's not really the case. As we were getting this information from the guides, it hit me so loud and clear. And I don't think it hit Cindy because Cindy's, not somebody that's done the studying that I've done. So with me, there's like all these quotes that are just stuck up in the noggin that I can't get rid of. And in some cases, I want to get rid of them because, you expose yourself to all these different things and they stay in there and they can form your opinions. And I've had some very intuitive friends that, Cindy, they'll rely more on just what comes through, which is beautiful because that's what we should be doing. Because when we, ultimately that's what we want to do is to go within because everything is there. All the knowledge is there that you ever need. You just have to develop the ability to tap into it. So when we see this, again, my thing I always go to is thinking about as above, so below. We see space and we recognize, okay, there's asteroids, there's maybe remnants of planets that are destroyed because of cosmic collisions and impacts, and there's comets. Many people have equated comets to sperm in some ways, right? Because, again, panspermia,
yep.
Bringing life all around everywhere. And of course, water brings life. But that as above, so below, that is one of the keys to everything. We get it from Hermetic philosophy, and we get it from other philosophies as well. As we've said, this is kind of the basis of many of the Eastern traditions, as well as the traditions that had to be secret in the West. Why? Because this is where the control grid comes from. It comes out of the Roman Empire, comes out of the Sumerians, comes out of the Anunnaki and the Ijiji. So they've spread their web all over, and they've tampered with the truth about how things really work. So if you just look within, you'll find the answers to what is going on without. Look to cells, right? Each individual cell, like we have said before, the entirety of the being that we would call Gaia, Earth, is just a cell. That's just reality. It's the cell in something bigger. Well, if we look to cells, there's interstitial fluid and there's intracellular fluid. So when you look at the interstitial fluid, is there nothing in between cells? No, there's a fluid. There's a fluid between cells. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to be suspended the way they are. So what we've gotten is that when you look to space, the way that the guides described it is that it is more like waters than we imagine.
Right. That's exactly what they said. And I'm really glad you're here to explain this because I'm easy when I'm able to talk to Mike. I know it's just Mike, and I'm really comfortable, so all the information flows. But he's able to put it in such a way that's so articulate and beautiful, and I just love that.
Well, I mean, there is some good to going, into basic biology and learning some of these things, because then we could understand a little bit more clearly that as within, so without. And even when we're looking at the nucleus, of a cell, and you see that, and the intracellular fluid, it just makes sense that there is a fluid, and that space itself is more like an ocean in some ways. And that actually got me thinking about some of the stuff that's come out from some of those bigger sources out there. People like Corey Good, for instance, and talking about how, the Navy, when you think about, like our spaceships and stuff going out to space, and it, the Navy having their own whole space program. But when you think about it, space is kind of like being in an ocean. And when we also think, and we've learned that there are cities in domes, and the atmosphere of Earth is in a way a dome.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps those waters out so we could breathe, and breathe, the way our bodies have developed. Yet, there are cities in our oceans that are in domes, and there's people living in those too. So again, all you got to do is look within to discover the reality that space is actually more like an ocean, in a sense, than a void.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly what it feels like.
Yeah. So just look to interstitial fluid and intracellular fluid, and that will show you that. And then, as we've been getting this trickling in of info, don't look up. Astonishing number of viruses are floating down on us all the time from the sky. This study will make you think twice about stepping outside for a breath of fresh air. A team of scientists from around the world confirmed millions of viruses rising into the atmosphere, traveling sometimes for 1,000 miles, sometimes falling back down to the Earth. But then how about the viruses that are in space too? As other studies and info has come in about the fact that there's bacteria out there. I think I remember hearing something about clearing bacteria at one time off of the space station or something. There is life out there, just floating.
Mm-hmm.
It's a soup. It's a primordial soup. Space is a primordial soup.
Absolutely, very much so. So there's all these things that, science teaches us one thing, but then when you go within and you pull out the information that's stored in your own DNA, you start to realize that, wow, all of this is a control grid just to keep our minds pointed in a certain direction for the benefit of someone else. Definitely not for our benefit.
No. So what we got was that, again, the being that created this universe is, can be likened to a ray off of the sun, which the sun being source. And I'm not saying that our sun is source, but our sun is a relay for source to send us energy, to send us light, to send us information, that when that light hits us, it changes us, it triggers us, it illuminates us, it lights up our DNA, it wakes us up. So there are many, many different creator gods out there, as there are, we now understand, we know there's tons of different galaxies out there. There's innumerable planets, innumerable solar systems. Earth is just one. Now, Earth was formed by pulling a lot of this debris together. So and everything that you need for life is right out there in that primordial soup that we, call space. So when you have the Spirit of God hovering over the deep waters of space, it then starts to use, different processes to pull these together and start to create our Earth, our solar system, out of everything that's there, because everything is already there. Everything that's needed is there. It's intent. And that's the key thing. And we have, since we are all, again, we could all view each one of us as an individual ray of light from Source, the ultimate source. We have that creator potential within us, so we have to be very, very careful. And as Yeshua said, you've heard it said that you shall not commit adultery, but I tell you, if you even think of it, you've already done it. That's just illuminating the power of thought. And so again, one thing that's in my personal humble opinion as a person that is not a doctor, I have not gone to, the Rockefeller University of MED, and I'm glad about that. But I have, studied biology and studied kinesiology and many other things. And again, it makes me think about all that conditioning, all that stuff that we absorb in that sometimes will block us from discovering a truth that's been right in front of our face every single time. Right in front of our face because of our conditioning, because of what's pounded into us. That mechanical point of view, looking at the body as just simply, chemicals reacting. And then, at some point in time, just like a machine that breaks down, it breaks down. Oh, well, there's no more chemical reactions. There's no more life. That couldn't be farther from the truth. We create the body as a vehicle for ourselves to get around in this 3D experience. Just the opposite. So much of the time, it's just the opposite. Well, that little spark from the sun is in you, and you have creative capability. And as you grow spiritually, it develops and it gets stronger and stronger. And as we go into the Photon Belt, which you could think of that also as a soup of infinite possibilities, a soup of intense source light energy that illuminates the darkness and exposes everything. This is what is going on right now. And I didn't realize the vastness of the Photon Belt. It's actually something that's even beyond the scope of a universe. As we know, there's again, to go down into the minutia, you have trillions of life forms inside you. Trillions. You are a universe. You are a universe yourself. And yet you're just a single cell in the body of Gaia. And Gaia is just a single cell in the body of something larger, and it goes on forever. This is the way it works. And yet we have the power to create, so we have to be so careful of our thoughts. And when in the Western, med system, they give you a diagnosis and say with certainty, this is what's going to happen, that is planting the seed of, in many cases, self-destruction. And we have to recognize that, because we can rise above that. We could rise above anything. We just have to tap into that power of Source, which lies within you as a unique expression of Source.
Absolutely. Intention is everything. Like, even when we work on people, Mike and I together, our intention has got to be for the highest good for that being. So with his ability to push healing energy, and as I'm using the tuning forks and removing blocks, I'm removing blocks out of anything that might be blocking you for your highest potential. That's my intent. And then I can't tell you how many times after time after time we work on people and their lives start to change. And sometimes it's scary and sometimes it's beautiful, but it happens, and it's really amazing to watch this happen time and time again, just from our intention. So that's everything.
And it's interesting to note, we got from very high guides that even the creator of this universe is still 3 degrees of separation removed from Source itself. Meaning that there's another lens of consciousness between, there's 3 lenses of consciousness, I guess that's the best way I could put it, between the creator of this particular universe and the source of all. And again, there's an infinite number of universes out there. It goes on forever. There's no end to this. And that should give you peace. Because again, what we're going through right now is just a temporary existence. This is temporary. No matter what happens to you, they cannot destroy you. They can trap souls, so to speak. still it's a temporary trap, even though that trap might last what we would call billions of years, in possibility. It's still temporary. And the photon belt that we're entering is illuminating everything. So all the lies are going to be exposed. This is the as within, as without, as above, so below. And so in our particular solar system, just like there's a consciousness that is Gaia, Earth, herself, and same thing with Venus and Jupiter. Interesting to note, we got that Yeshua is working on Earth, Jupiter, and Venus. Those three planets are the ones that he works on. And so that begs the question, well, okay, there's got to be beings on those associated with those planets and their moons, if we're talking Jupiter, and yes, that's the case. And again, different densities as well. But they have hidden so much from us, hidden so much reality and truth from us. As I think the number was there 22. There's at least 22 other planets that we don't know about, and in many cases it's because they're fourth density. Which again, as we move up and we head into that fourth density, there will be planets that all of a sudden are there, and it's like, well, where were they? They were there the whole time. They're just vibrating a little bit higher up. Again, think of a radio knob. You're listening to one channel, turn it a little bit to the right. Up, there's a totally new channel. Turn it a little bit to the left. Up, there's another totally new channel. It's the same thing with what we see here. So you have creator gods that are actually living in our sun. And these beings are doing their act of maintaining the creation of the original creator of this particular universe. And when we look out at just one tiny little portion of space, we see all these galaxies which can hold, billions and billions of stars, countless billions or trillions of planets inhabited by, again, perhaps billions or trillions of beings. Life is everywhere out there. And there's many different creators, but there is really just the one source, which is basically pure consciousness itself. And it's beyond anything that's manifest, but it does include the manifest. When we look at the shape, again, if you want to get an idea for truths, then just judge it by as within,
without.
As so without, as above, as below. And we look at the shape of our own universe, and we kind of recognize that, it's the same shape that we see with the energy field of the Earth, which is the same shape as the energy field of a single individual.
And an apple and a tomato.
And it goes on and on and on. This is just, it's again part of that fractal nature of everything. So all you really need to do is develop the ability to go within. You don't need any dogma. Fundamentalism fundamentally locks you into one particular frame. And just think about it as a motion picture. You know how it's picture after picture, photo after photo that are run together at a certain speed. Then you get to see the whole movie while you're just looking at one photo and staring at one photo, and you're never going to get the whole picture.
I know. And when I see little children go to school, and well, of course anybody go to school, it really feels like their ability to learn is being limited because they're being told things. And that, to me, that's limitation, is when you're being told that this thing is the absolute and only truth. Well, then your mind kind of stops searching. I don't think we're supposed to stop searching. I think we're always supposed to be creating and making new realizations and new understandings for eternity.
Everything you'll ever need to know is within you. The secrets of the universe are imprinted on the cells of your body. That says it all. That really, really says it all, and that's true. And again, you just need to go within. You don't need any dogma at all. And if you really truly want to worship Source, then simply live a life based in compassion and love.
Absolutely.
Pretty simple. That's really all you need. So we want to thank you guys for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon, and also for supporting Medicinal Foods, who are wonderful people as well. And use the coupon code EEA to get a discount and support the channel. Hopefully you guys find this interesting and illuminating and inspires you to go deeper
We hope so. That's what we aim to do.
God bless and namaste.
Namaste.